Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Bol.
Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
How are you, Maharaj?
All right. You just finished?
No, I finished 4 o'clock.
All right.
So yeah.
You got a Bobby's job.
Yeah, I'm not working too much. 8 till 4.
Well, yeah, that's all right.
And still do Mangalati in the morning, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or get my rounds chanted in the morning.
Yeah.
Here's everybody. Everybody's here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Okay, so I'll just chant for a bit. Jai Radha Madhava for 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then everybody's chance to come in. Jai Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Vallabha Yasodanandana Braju Jana Ranjana Nana Braju Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Tiramachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjavihari Radha Madhava Punjavihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Actually, Maharaj.
Haribol Guru.
Haribol.
Okay. Turn your microphone off. Turn your microphone off.
I don't know why you do that.
Bottom left, there's a microphone, just mute it. Okay. Oh, I can mute it anyway. Okay, so anything from last week? We did chapter 8 and 9 actually.
it's 4 questions asked.
Sorry,
And 4 questions asked in number 8.
what about?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It was
I think it was the universe.
Chatusloki,
Yes.
the 4 seed verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we explained how Brahma spoke these original verses, or should I say, Prabhupada Vishnu spoke these verses to Brahma. Then Brahma spoke to Narada Muni and told him to expand on it according to the situation. So he expected him to not just quote the seed verses, but make it relevant to the people he had to, deal with. And then Narada Muni did the same with Vyasadeva. He says, he knew his position, that he was well equipped in knowledge, and he just asked him to, and he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he expanded a lot, 18,000 verses. And then, of course, he spoke to his son, Shukadeva Goswami. So, in other words, we made the point that the Bhagavatam is is unlimited. We can expand and expand on it according to, providing we follow the proper protocol. And this, the Chatusloki first dealt with Sambandha, understanding who we are and what the goal is. And then the second verse also dealt with Sambandha, but the first one was Gyan, knowledge. The second one was realization, how, Krishna's, how we're illusioned in this material world, reflection in the material world of the soul, reflection of light in the darkness. And then the third one was that Prema Bhakti, about how Krishna's in the heart and he can appear if we follow the process of devotional service. And also how he's in the material world as well, by his external energy. And the last verse, Etavade eva jignasa, tattva jignasin atmanaha. It says that the goal is to search after this knowledge in all time and space, both directly and indirectly. So that's sadhana bhakti, to actually practice. Okay. So I'll not go all the way through the second canto. Second canto, basically, first 3 chapters, I explain about Ashtanga Yoga, process of karma, and how bhakti is superior. And then, Parikshit Maharaj becomes very thoughtful and he becomes really moved by, his heart becomes changed. Third canto is called a change of heart, pure devotional service. And so then he starts to inquire about creation. And so from the 5th, 6th, that 5th starts to explain about creation from Kanadakashai Vishnu. And then 6th is Purusha Shukta, where he explains about how Kanadakashai Vishnu enters into the material world, into the universe. And that's the Brahma's created from the navel. And then he creates all the ingredients, the Virat Rupa, and those ingredients become different parts of his body. And how by desiring to eat, everybody desires to eat. Everybody can function because he's functioning, in other words. We are persons because our parents are persons. Prabhupada Vishnu is the father of us all. So we get our abilities from him. Then 9, we ended that by questions in 8 then, all questions by Parikshit Maharaj. And then 9 started saying Chatusloki, and now we're on to 10. So I'll go through 10 and then we'll go into the next canto. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, I've done that. Have I done that already? Yeah, I thought so. Just testing. Okay, so so Shukadeva Swami, he's now going to speak further and about, you know, the answers according to the Bhagavatam. You know, 9 was according to the Lord's version. And so then he starts to explain how the Bhagavatam's made up first. It's, you know, the first verse is Atra Sarga Visargascha, like that. So there are 10 subjects of the Bhagavatam. So he quotes these and then highlights them in the 3rd to the 7th chapter. Definitions of the 12 subjects, the 10 subjects. So Sarga is the elementary creation. That's the creation by Karanadakashai Vishnu and Garbhodakashai Vishnu to create the Virat Rupa eventually. All the ingredients are there. And then when Lord Brahma's born, then he starts to manipulate those ingredients. You remember how we had this, you know, Garbhodakashai Vishnu desired to hear, and so the ear was produced, and then sound, and then ether, then sound. So they're still potentials, they're not actually a person. So then Garbhodakashai Vishnu comes and takes those ingredients and starts creating the life force, different lives, species of life in the universe. So that's called Visarga. Okay. So that's the second one. Then Sthanam. This is like the geography of the universe, the situation. Sthanam means situation, how things are laid out. So Sarga is the 3rd chapter, 3rd canto. Visarga is, how does it go now? Let's have a think. Yeah, 4th chapter, 4th canto. Sthanam is 5th. You know, we talk about the hellish planets and the different planetary systems. And then 6th is Poshanam, maintenance. You know, how Krishna maintains everything in the universe. That's the 6th. And then the 7th chapter, 7th canto is Manvantara, or, you know, occupational duties. The Manus are the ones who create the laws, and they, like the administration head of the universe, like the police force in one respect also. So that's in 7th. And 8th canto is Uti, impetus for activity, or, you know, the living entity's desire to try and enjoy this world. That's explained. Then Ishanukanta, this is the 9th canto. These are the different, you know, incarnations of the Lord. And then if you look in the 9th canto, it's just a list of names and the activities of the different kings as well. And then Nirodha, that's the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. That's 12th canto. And Mukti is the 11th canto. So, and then finally, Ashraya, the shelter is Krishna. That's the 7th verse. He's the face of the Lord. So all these different, so the 2 feet of the Lord are Sarga, Visarga, and then Sthanam, Poshanam, and the thigh, Manvantara, that's the waist, I think, like that, and it goes up to the arm, and then the neck, and then the top of the head, and then the forehead, and then the face. 11th and 12th are the top of the head and the forehead. Okay. So basically, this is the same as what we've already read. We've already gone through this, so I won't spend any time on it. You know, the Viranga desires to eat, like that. So then there's a palate and there's a tongue created like that. We did all that before. So it's just the same thing in more, little more detail, that's all. Okay. So that's all Saga. Saga means the initial creation. And now, and at the end of the 10th canto, it explains Visharga. So this is created by Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma creates, Lord Vishnu maintains, and Lord Shiva destroys. So then, you know, we come to the point where you know, Shaunaka Rishi is the head of the sage that Naimisharanya. And he's in the first canto, it was mentioned about Maitreya and Vidura, how, if you remember, when Vidura was insulted by Duryodhana, and he left the palace and went on pilgrimage. And so he didn't say too much about that. And so what happened to Vidura then? What was all that about? You know what I mean? In a conversation we do that, somebody will carry on speaking. I'll say, wait a minute, come back, what about this here? So this is what Shaunaka Rishi is doing. It's because he was going to carry on speaking about the creation, the Padma Kalpa. So that's the Kalpa where Lord Bor appears, Lord Varaha. It's sometimes called Varaha Kalpa, and it's called Padma Kalpa. So they were going to carry on speaking about creation, but then Shaunaka Rishi says, wait a minute, I want to understand what happened to Vidura then. Tell me more. And so we'll find in the beginning of the third canto, he starts talking about Vidura. And this will actually answer the question to the Padma Kalpa, to the creation again, because Vidura also inquired about that from Maitreya. Okay. Okay, so we can start the third canto. So I'll just give a brief overview of the third canto. And we can split it into 4 sections. It's quite a long canto, up to 33 verses. So, you know, the first 3 verses are the pastimes of, you know, when Vidura goes on a pilgrimage, he meets Uddhava, speaks further conversations there, then Uddhava advises him to go to Maitreya. And then the next part is where creation again. So it'll be creation again from now, from the beginning of the first canto to the 10th chapter. In more detail. That's how important it is. But we won't go through all that. We'll just touch on some subjects we haven't done before. Then the 11, I think it's 11. Oh, that's right. In 10, it starts talking about time, because time's making everything work. Time, the whole thing doesn't go anywhere. You know what I mean? If time stops, everything stops. So then in one particular chapter, he explains about time, and that's input. That's the thing that's making everything work. And then after that, he starts talking about the Swayambhu Vimanu. This is the Kalpa of Swayambhu Vimanu. And it's the Varaha, it's the Padma Kalpa, which is known as the Varaha Kalpa sometimes. So the next subject is Varaha, the pastimes of Lord Viraha. And so this is the situation. We can start reading about this if you want, because I won't be giving many philosophical points. When we get to that point, we'll just read about it. And then the last section, or the next to the last section, from 20 to 24, that's about Lord Kapila. It changes to Lord Kapila, how, you know, he's a great sage, and he marries Devahuti, and then the whole philosophy of Bhakti Yoga is espoused by Kardama Muni to Devahuti. And then from 25 to 33, it expands on this Bhakti Yoga. And then the last 3 or 4 chapters, it talks about this material world, how, you know, how it works, how everybody's becoming entangled. It talks about the different planetary systems that we go to, like that. Okay, so that's an outline of the 3rd canto. So, you know, 1st canto is questions by Vidura. So these questions were asked in the, as we said, in the 1st canto. And now there's a conversation. Now, Shaunaka Rishi is speaking. He's talking about Shukadev Goswami, who's speaking about the pasta, who's speaking the Bhagavatam, and he's relating to the, you know, the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. Okay? So the Bhagavatam has been spoken to us by Suta Goswami, where he's relating to the conversation which was spoken by Shukadev Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, which he heard on the banks of the Ganges. And now Shukadev Goswami is referring to the conversation which took place between Maitreya and Vidura, or he will do in due course of time. Shukadev Goswami, considering that the questions of Parikshit were previously asked by Vidura to Maitreya, started to narrate the events leading to the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. So this is the lead up. And so then he starts talking from text 6 up to text 9 about the atrocities that the Pandavas had to undergo under the, you know, the rulership of Dhritarashtra and the evil doings of Duryodhana. And so at one point, Dhritarashtra called Vidura. Vidura was his brother, but he was half brother. They had different mothers. Vidura was born to a maidservant, but he was still considered part of the royalty. And so he was always giving good counsel to Dhritarashtra, but he could very rarely take it. You know, he was too attached to Duryodhana. And at this point, it comes into the conversation where Vidura is being called by Dhritarashtra to give him counsel. And at this point, you know, Vidura has just come back off pilgrimage. He doesn't, no, actually it's before he goes on pilgrimage, sorry. He doesn't pull any punches. So he gives it him straight. He says, just return the legitimate land to the Pandavas. You know, he said, Krishna, Bhima's breathing like a heavy snake. Surely you're afraid of him. Give it him back and, you know, satisfy him. Give him back their land. You know, they've got Lord Krishna on their side. You don't have a chance. And then he says something which really miffs Duryodhana. Get rid of your son, Duryodhana, for the benefit of the family. He's a fence personified, envious of Lord Krishna and cause of all inauspiciousness. Now, you can imagine being in the same room with somebody and somebody says that about you. How would you feel? You know? So, you know, Vidura, he wasn't a Nancy. You know, he said it straight into Duryodhana. He said he started hissing like a snake. He was so happy. He was so unhappy, sorry. He says, who called this son of a maidservant, Dasiputra here? He betrays those upon whom he subsists and spies in the enemy's interest. Drive him from the palace and leave him only with his breath. So immediately, Duryodhana didn't wait, Vidura didn't wait. He got his bow, he hung it on the door jamb on the door, and he walked straight out. And he went on pilgrimage, and he didn't feel bad about it. Actually, he saw that, you know, there's nothing I can do about this situation. It must be the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let me take advantage of it. It's just like this pandemic, isn't it? You know, nobody asked for it, but we got it. And so what have we got to do? Do we start complaining? So he didn't complain. He just got on with what he had to do. And, you know, we're doing the same thing. We're like on pilgrimage. We're doing a bit more reading than we'd ever do. You know, we've got more time to do these things. So it's a chance to purify ourselves. And he said he went on pilgrimage, and even though Lord Krishna was there, he could have gone straight to see Lord Krishna, who was qualified. But this is the nature of a devotee. He didn't feel qualified. He was thinking, I've been in the association of Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra and that family, so I've been polluted. So I better go and purify myself. So, you know, this is not Sahajism. Sahajas, they don't do anything like that. They just act out the pastimes of Krishna. They don't, but a real devotee, he's always trying to actually improve himself. And, you know, nothing's too difficult to do that for the service of the Lord. Okay. And then, so Vidura went to all the pilgrimage places, to Prabhas Kshetra, and there he found out that the Pandavas had, the Yadavas had all left the world. And then eventually he met Uddhava. So Uddhava, he understood that Lord Krishna, he understood that the Kauravas had left, the Yadavas had left, sorry, you know, the family of Lord Krishna. So he knew that probably Lord Krishna will leave very soon. And so he took the opportunity to go and meet Lord Krishna before he left this world. You know, Uddhava was a great devotee of the Lord. And so he saw Krishna underneath a pipala tree. And he was sat across, you know, like Prabhupada sometimes sits. He had a straight leg and one leg bent over the other one. And he looked very relaxed, leant against the tree. And he says this pipala tree is significant of the material world. It's the backside of the Lord. He wasn't facing it. And he looked very happy. We never see Krishna looking sad. He's always jubilant. And that's our natural position also. And so then he started to, so this is, so we're going from that point where Uddhava was speaking to Krishna. This is the little bit of background knowledge. This is where Vidura meets Uddhava after he's seen Krishna, after he's, you know, Krishna's spoken. We'll hear more about that bit later. And so Vidura starts to question. He inquires from, you know, about the welfare of the Yadus, about the welfare of the Kurus, you know, and then eventually he asks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what has happened to him? So I don't know how far to go into this, actually. Anyway, I'll just say a little bit. When he was talking about the Kurus, he said that Lord Krishna didn't kill them. He could have killed them immediately and have finished with the whole thing. He waited while there was a situation to get them all on one battlefield at once and get it all over and done with in one swoop. So he didn't do it individually. Krishna thought it better to do that. And also the story pans out for the Battle of Kurukshetra. It gives him time to speak Bhagavad Gita like that. So Krishna doesn't, everything that, you know, it's like well planned in advance. Okay, so we'll go on to the second chapter. Now he's explained about the what happened to the Yadus, inquired about the Yadus, inquired about the Kurus. So now we'll inquire about Lord Krishna. So his first inquiry was about Lord Krishna, because that's the first thing we should inquire about, the Supreme Lord. And so we come to the second chapter, and Uddhava, you know, is actually heartbroken. As soon as he mentions Lord Krishna, he goes deep into samadhi, and he's like, for one muhurta, for 48 minutes, he's actually just absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. And, you know, he's completely blissful. And then eventually he comes out of it. So then he starts to explain about Lord Krishna's appearance in this world and how he related to the, you know, the Kauravas and the Yadavas, like that. So that's the second chapter. We can read through, we can start to read together if you want, because I'm just saying things which are actually in the Bhagavatam. I'm not picking out anything out of the purports at the moment, not so much. So shall we do that? And those who want to read, we can take it in turn. And we can read maybe a few verses, and then we'll pass it on to somebody else. So I think we should start from where Uddhava just comes out of his, you know, samadhi, how he's been thinking about Lord Krishna, and then he starts to speak and answer, you know, Vidura's question. That takes 7. So have you all got your Bhagavatams? This is third canto, second chapter, takes 7. Who wants to read first? Who's got it ready?
I've got it ready, Maharaj.
Okay, start then.
Text 7. Sri Uddhav said, "My dear Vidura, the son of the world, Lord Krishna has set, and our house has now been swallowed by the great snake of time. What can I say to you about our welfare?" Text 8. This universe, with all its planets, is most unfortunate. And even more unfortunate are the members of the Yadu dynasty, because they could not identify Lord Hari as the personality of Godhead, any more than the fish could identify the moon. Text 9. The Yadus were all experienced devotees, learned and experts in psychic study. Over and above this, they were always with the Lord in all kinds of relaxations. And still, they were only able to know him as the one supreme who dwells everywhere.
Yeah, they knew him as Paramatma. They didn't know more than that. That were the Yadus. Just see what Prabhupada's given us, you know. Carry on.
Text 11. Lord Sri Krishna, who manifested his eternal form before the vision of all on the earth, performed his disappearance by removing his form from the sight of those who were unable to see him as he is, due to not executing required penance.
Okay, so somebody want to read from 12 to 14.
The Lord appeared in the mortal world by his internal potency, Yogamaya. He came in his eternal form, which is just suitable for his pastimes. These pastimes were wonderful for everyone, even for those proud of their own opulence, including the Lord himself in his form as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Thus his, Sri Krishna's transcendental body is the ornament of all ornaments.
13.
Text 13. All the demigods from the upper, lower and middle universal planetary systems assembled at the altar of the Rajashai sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira. After seeing the beautiful bodily features of Lord Krishna, they all contemplated that he was the ultimate dexterous creation of Brahma, the creator of the human beings. Text 14. The damsels of Raj, after pastimes of laughter, humour, and exchanges of glances, were anguished when Krishna left them. They used to follow him with their eyes, and thus they sat down with stunned intelligence and could not finish their household duties.
Okay, so next, from 15 to 15 to 18. Somebody else wants to read this. This is changing slightly. Lord Krishna's mercy and bewildering activities it's speaking about. You want to read, Haridas Prabhu?
Yeah, I can read. Text 15. The personality of God has the all-compassionate controller of both the spiritual and material creations is unborn. But when there is friction between his peaceful devotees and persons who are in the material modes of nature, he takes birth just like fire, accompanied by the Mahatattva. Text 16. When I think of Lord Krishna, who he was born in the prison house of Vasudev, although he is unborn, how he went away from his father's protection to Braj and lived there incognito out of fear of the enemy, and how, although unlimitedly powerful, he fled from Mathura in fear. All these bewildering incidents give me distress. Text 17. Lord Krishna begged pardon from his parents for their, Krishna and Balaram's, inability to serve their feet, and due to being away from home because of great fear of Kamsha, he said, "O mother, O father, please excuse us for this inability. All this behavior of the Lord gives me pain at heart." Text 18. Who, after smelling the dust of his lotus feet even once, could ever forget it? Simply by expanding the leaves of his eyebrows, Krishna has given the death blow to those who were burdening the earth.
Okay, so, Krishna's activities are bewildering. He's the Supreme Lord, but he acts like an ordinary human being. And the next one is his mercy from 19 onwards. Would somebody like to read that? What about Catherine? Would you like to read? From text 19.
Yeah. So text 19. You have personally seen how the king of Shishupala achieved success in yoga practice, although he hated Lord Krishna. Even the actual yogis aspire after such success with great interest by performance of their various practices. Who can tolerate separation from him? Text 20. Certainly others who were fighters on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified by the onslaught of Arjuna's arrows, and while seeing the lotus-like face of Krishna so pleasing to the eyes, they achieved the abode of the Lord. Text 21. Lord Sri Krishna is the Lord of all kinds of threes and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. He is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to his feet. Shall I carry on?
Yeah, all kinds of threes. It means there's 3 Purusha avatars, 3 Guna avatars, there's 3 modes of nature, there's the 3 worlds, there's 3 principal potencies, like that. Carry on, yeah.
Text 22. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who was sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanations before him, saying, "O my Lord, please let it be known to you."
Okay, number 23. This is a famous verse, 23. This is, I'll let you read it first and I'll explain it.
Okay. Text 23. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast.
Yeah, this is when, and you know the pastime of, what they call him, Pundarik Vijayanidhi. He was a great devotee in Chaitanya Leela. And Girada wanted to take initiation, you know, this is one of the Panchatattva. He was a brahmachari, you know, austere. And so Mukunda, I think it was Mukunda, or Govinda said, well, I'll take you to a really good Vaishnava. He said, oh, great, yeah. So he took him to Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and he was actually a merchant who was very rich. And when he went in the house, you know, Pundarik Vijayanidhi was laid on a 4-poster bed with, you know, silks and pearls everywhere. Not only that, you know, it was actually, you know, laid back, dropping grapes into his mouth, something like that, you know. Being fanned with a yak-tail whisk by his servants. So I thought, wait a minute, what's going on? You know, I thought we were supposed to be renounced. And Govinda could understand his mind. And so he quoted this verse, you know, about Lord Krishna's mercy, how merciful he is. He even actually liberates the demons. And as soon as he started, you know, quoting it, Pundarik Vijayanidhi went into a fit of transcendental ecstasy. You know, he was throwing himself about the room. And it took about 4 or 5 servants to try and hold him down. And then, you know, Gadadhar realized, whoa, wait a minute. So, you know, anyway, there's many things to learn from that pastime. We shouldn't judge, what is it, by externals. What's that saying?
Judge a book by its cover.
Shouldn't what?
Judge a book by its cover.
We shouldn't judge a book by its cover, yeah. So, especially with the devotees, we can't judge by externals. Okay, so you want to read 24 as well?
Text 24. I consider the demons who are inimical toward the Lord to be more than the devotees, because while fighting with the Lord, absorbed in thoughts of enmity, they are able to see the Lord carried on the shoulder of Garuda, the son of Kasyapa, and carrying the wheel weapon in his hand.
Okay, so so now we're going to talk about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan for the last few verses. We've just been speaking about his magnanimity, his mercifulness. And so this is what Uddhava described. You know, if you remember, Lord Krishna's left and he's heartbroken. So before he tells Vidura, he's explaining all these qualities of the Lord. Okay, so 25. Who wants to read next? Is it Karshana? Do you want to read? I could see he was sliding down in the It's a hard day.
Oh, very tough, you know. The material world is very tough. Keeps battering us. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, being prayed to by Brahma to bring welfare to the earth, was begotten by Vasudeva in the womb of his wife Devaki in the prison of the king of Bhoja. Next one. Thereafter his father, being afraid of Kamsa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda, and there he lived for 11 years like a covered flame with his elder brother Baladev. 27. In his childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and thus he travelled on the shores of the Yamuna River through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds. 28. When the Lord displayed his activities just suitable for childhood, he was visible only to the residents of Vrindavan. Sometimes he would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child, and while doing so, he would appear like a lion cub. 29. While herding the very beautiful bulls, the Lord, who was the reservoir of all opulence and fortune, used to blow his flute and thus enlivened his faithful followers, the cowherd boys. The great wizards who were able to assume any form were engaged by the king of Bhoja, Kamsa, to kill Krishna. But in the course of his pastimes, the Lord killed them as easily as a child breaks dolls. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were perplexed by great difficulties because of a certain portion of the Yamuna was poisoned by the chief of the reptiles, Kalia. The Lord chastised the snake king within the water and drove him away. And after coming out of the river, he caused the cows to drink the water and proved that the water was again in its natural state. 32. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, desired to utilize the opulent financial strength of Maharaj Nanda for worship of the cows, and also he wanted to give a lesson to Indra, the king of heaven. He thus advised his father to perform worship of Go, or the pasturing land of the cows, with the help of learned brahmanas. 33. O sober Vidura, King Indra, his honor, having been insulted, poured water incessantly on Vrindavan, and thus the inhabitants of Raj and the land of cows were greatly distressed. But the compassionate Lord Krishna saved them from danger with his pastime umbrella, the Govardhan hill. 34. In the third season of the year, the Lord enjoyed as the central beauty of the assembly of women by attracting them with his pleasing songs in an autumn night brightened by moonlight.
So to a materialistic person hears these pastimes, he'll think, you know, we're mad. He won't be attracted at all. So maybe we're not so attracted, actually. So it's just like, you know, but when you actually have a relationship with somebody, whatever you hear about that person, you know, you feel ecstasy because he's part of your family, isn't it? You know, if you've got a son or whatever and he does something really good, then, you know, you feel thrilled. So, you know, the more we become part of Krishna's family, the more we'll actually experience ecstasy just hearing these things about Krishna. Into something like, you know, something related to us. It's, you know, in our Sampradaya we say, Krishna's mine. You know what I mean? This is a mood. Krishna belongs to me. We do say, I am Krishna's, but we also say, you know, we feel that Krishna's mine, is part of my family. So that's why we may not, until we develop, you know, devotion and really appreciate Krishna, then we won't be able to really understand these pastimes. That's what it means. We understand them by realization, not by words. I think we've all got that experience sometimes. Sometimes Krishna gives us, well, I'm talking about myself, maybe you've got it all the time, but sometimes Krishna gives us some taste and we think, wow, where did that come from? And, you know, the same thing I've been doing for like last 30 years, and there's no taste. You know what I mean? So that's Krishna's mercy. He gives us a taster, something to aspire for. Okay, we're going to the third chapter. Is the Lord pastimes out of Vrindavan. So it's Uddhava's carrying on narrating the pastimes of the Lord. So who's next? It's Aharada. Mataji.
Text 1. Sri Uddhava said, Thereafter, Lord Krishna went to Mathura city with Sri Baladeva, and to please their parents, they dragged Kamsa, the leader of public enemies, down from his throne and killed him, pulling him along the ground with great strength. Text 2. The Lord learned all the Vedas with their different branches simply by hearing them once from his teacher, Sandipani Muni, whom he rewarded by bringing back his dead son from the region of Yamaloka. Attracted by the beauty and fortune of Rukmini, the daughter of King Bhishmaka, many great princes and kings assembled to marry her, but Lord Krishna, stepping over the other hopeful candidates, carried her away as his own share, as Garuda carried away nectar. Text 4. By subduing 7 bulls, whose noses were not pierced, the Lord achieved the hand of Princess Nagnajiti in the open competition to select her bridegroom. Although the Lord was victorious, his competitors asked the hand of the princess, and thus there was a fight. Well equipped with weapons, the Lord killed or wounded all of them, but he was not hurt himself. Text 5. Just to please his dear wife, the Lord brought back the Parijata tree from heaven, just as an ordinary husband would do. But Indra, the king of heaven, induced by his wives, handpicked as he was, ran after the Lord with full force to fight him.
Okay, so would anybody else like to read that? Has anybody not read who wants to read? Okay, so Lord, anyway, so the next one, 6 and 7, talks about, and 8 and 9 are the same, different pastimes of the Lord as he's when he's in Dwarka. And then the next section from 10 to 15 is killing of some demons in the Kurukshetra war. And then Krishna in Dwarka. So like that. The other one was Mathura actually. And then at the end of this chapter, it's the events leading to the annihilation of the Yadus. So now we're getting back into the story. It's just been describing Krishna. So in 24 it says, it talks about how the Yadus left this world. The Yadavas, they were the associates of Lord Krishna, and they offered, they went to Prabhas Kshetra on a pilgrimage. They fed the Brahmins, and then they took permission to actually drink a type of wine, rice wine. What they call it in Japan, sake. They took a rice wine, and they became bewildered, and so they all started fighting. So yeah, this is a point before that where they're I think it was Samba. Samba put a pillow up his jumper, or up his kirta, and they went, like young lads are always cracking jokes and, making a joke out of everything. They really get off on that. So they went to the sages, great sages, and they said, "Oh, great sages, this young damsel, they put a wig on Samba, and this Mataji, will it be a boy or a girl?" And the sages could understand, so they said, "It'll be a lump of iron." And that lump of iron will destroy the whole Yadu dynasty. And so the pastime I just mentioned about, fighting on rice wine, they used these sticks, so when they went back and told their elders, Ugrasena, he said, "Well, we'll grind it up." They ground the iron ball up into filings so it couldn't do any harm. And then they threw it in the ocean. And then the tide came in, and these island filings up the Bashetra, you know, they started to grow into spears, steel spears. And when the Yadavas drank the wine and started quarreling, they picked these spears up, and that's how they killed one another. Okay. So we're going to 4. There's a few minutes left. So this starts with them becoming delirious, you know, the part of the story I just quoted. And it says that these Yadavas, there was demigods and there was Nityasiddha devotees. He said the Nityasiddha devotees, the Yadavas, then they had an expansion of the demigods which entered into them. So they were like 2 persons. And he said it was these demigods, the demigod portion, which actually fought and went back to the demigod world. It wasn't the Nityasiddhas. So it was to enable the demigods to go back to their posts after the Lord's pastimes. So if anybody asks you, what, you know, why the Lord's pure devotees would actually kill one another, then you've got the answer. Okay, and then the next portion from text 4 to 13 is where, you remember I was talking about how Vidura met Uddhava. So before Vidura met Uddhava, Uddhava had spoke to Lord Krishna. And so this is going to explain about that section where Uddhava goes to meet Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna starts to speak and answer Uddhava's questions. And also at that time, by good fortune, Maitreya Rishi came along. And it explains how, you know, Maitreya Rishi, he was a Jnana Mishra Bhakta. His devotion was mixed with Jnana. Jnana means a little bit impersonalistic, not full devotion to a person, you know, this tendency to want to acquire knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Or, you know, we want, anyway, that's my understanding. But it's called a little bit of impersonalistic tendency, Jnana Mishra Bhakti. But Uddhava was a pure devotee. And so it says that Uddhava also was 2 people. There was the eternally liberated, or Nityasiddha Uddhava, but he had another portion which was there as well. And so therefore that enabled Lord Krishna to speak. I'll come back to you next week on this one. I'll clarify it. I can't quite remember exactly what happened there. But, you know, there was also 2 people there. Or, yeah. Yeah, so because he realized that Krishna was leaving very soon, there were 2 reasons that he wanted to speak to him. You know, Krishna wanted to relieve Uddhava of his suffering condition because he was going to disappear. And although Uddhava asked Lord Krishna, please, I can't stand to be on this world on my own without you, so please take me back with you. And Lord Krishna said, no, he says, you stay here because you have to go to Badrika Ashram. There's great sages there who need to know this science of Bhakti Yoga, which I'm now going to speak to you. And then they can actually, that was the preaching mission, they would understand it and then they would preach to others. And they would also go and see the deity of Nara and Narayan Rishi there also. And the second reason, what's the second reason? That's the 2 reasons: to mitigate his suffering and to tell him to go to Badrika Ashram. So now, Uddhava is speaking to Vidura. We've just explained the situation where the Yadavas all fought, and then, you know, so he's told him about that, and then he's talking about Lord Krishna, how he met Lord Krishna and he spoke to him about Bhakti Yoga. But he doesn't directly preach Bhakti Yoga to Vidura. He starts glorifying the Lord again, about how he saw him under that. Remember, we talked about the pipala tree which he was sat under, and he says he was resting against a young banyan tree, actually, indicating this universe is the smallest of all material energies, are kept to the back of the Lord. His right foot was on his left thigh, giving up his pastimes in this world. He was blissful. So he's setting the scene for the discussion that Lord Krishna had with Uddhava. When Maitreya came, Krishna really wanted to speak to Uddhava because he was a pure devotee. He was more speaking to Uddhava than Maitreya. Because, you know, obviously pure devotion attracts the Lord. Somebody who's more interested in you, you'll be more interested in them, is that right? If somebody's indifferent, you won't spend so much time with them. So that Krishna's a person. And that's great, because it's up to us how much of a relationship we want, isn't it? It's not due to having so much gyan or, you know, being, what can you say, blue-eyed boy. It is blue-eyed boy, actually. That's a real thing, isn't it? We have to become a blue-eyed boy or a blue-eyed girl, you know, really intent on just pleasing Krishna. And then he'll reciprocate with us according to our, that's what it says, isn't it? Yataya, what's that verse? It said, Krishna reciprocates according to our desire to serve him. And so, because Uddhava was more devoted, he was speaking more to Uddhava. And, well, this is it. Here, Uddhava is revealed as a sadhana siddha. He's not, he's a nitya siddha, but it says he was revealed as a sadhana siddha to protect the confidentiality of his pastimes. Krishna doesn't reveal his pure devotees so easily. And so he wanted to keep his pure devotees protected. And by that, he was also elevating Maitreya. He was reciprocating with Uddhava in such a nice way that Maitreya became attractive. And he realized that there's actually a higher stage than what I'm practicing. And usually when we see that and we see how nice it is, we actually aspire for it. So he was helping Maitreya as well. But they both heard from the Lord simultaneously. So we can stop there. And next week we'll carry on from text 12 on the 4th chapter. Okay. Is there anything you want to ask before we wind up? Okay. So thank you for all tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Otherwise, I won't have anything to do. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.